Okay, so I want us to talk about, I kind of want to process and think out loud about what I've been experiencing and observing over the last several weeks. It feels like there's something happening kind of collectively in the energy, but definitely in my world. I am encountering women who, in their motherhood journey, experience some kind of trauma. Either it could be a birth, a very traumatic birth, or a trauma in their mothering. So, like a life-threatening situation with a child, but something in the mothering that is traumatic or life altering that seems to unlock years of suppressed trauma. Like there's one trigger, and for whatever reason, it feels like it's connected to motherhood or women or like the feminine wisdom.
Mm.
There's some trigger that is the final straw, like the body, the womb, the feminine is holding trauma for years and years and just stowing it away, and the body remembers, right? But the mind and the body are so incredibly good at protecting us
Mm.
and shielding us from pain and pain and trauma, to keep us moving forward and keep us functioning in our lives. And so it's like the body stores trauma after trauma, and especially I'm speaking mostly for women. I know everyone experiences trauma, but as a female, this thread of like feeling unsafe around men or having their bodies violated, or um, just all of the trauma that women endure in our society, being silenced and having to stay quiet and be nice and all of that. And so it's like the body is storing all these trauma over years and decades and a lifetime, and then there's some triggering event that opens it all up, and then all at once. And so I'm encountering this in my personal life and professionally all at once. All these years of suppressed trauma shows up kind of in a flash.
Mm.
And the woman, so she's not just dealing with the trauma, the most recent traumatic event, she's dealing with a rush of tons of trauma,
Mm.
which of course is incredibly overwhelming for the system. And so the women who are facing this are like trying to keep a hold on reality, keep their feet on the ground, be parents, be partners, go to work, as their mind and body are racing and flooded with all these connections from experiences throughout their life that somehow connect to maybe this most recent trauma. And And so we see women who are seemingly, they appear chaotic, manic, um, you know, going a mile a minute in terms of speech. They're incredibly dysregulated, and it's messy. It's messy. And for the people who are encountering these women, their circle, their partners, their friends, even medical providers, therapists, their support system doesn't know what to do with this because it's scary and it's overwhelming and it doesn't make sense. And so the other piece of this that I'm noticing is because it's so messy and scary and doesn't make sense in our society, it's like we don't know what to do with that. And we're so quick to try to control it and make it make sense. And so we put these labels on it, right? Oh my gosh, she is psychotic. She's having a psychotic break. She's in psychosis. She has borderline personality disorder. She has mania. Um, she's having delusions. All these kinds of put her on medication, put her in inpatient treatment. This person needs serious help. They're not in reality. And so what I'm noticing, so there's a thread that I'm seeing where that's the experience, that's the response to this kind of situation of overwhelming trauma kind of flooding in, that's how people are responding. And what happens is we're basically, when we do that, we're saying you need to suppress again, like go back to suppressing the trauma because what you're doing is making everyone uncomfortable. We don't know how to handle it. We need you to numb it, right? We need you to medicate. We need you to be quiet. We need you to hold it, like rein it back in, which is further traumatizing women because a lot of their trauma is around needing to suppress, not being able to express these scary experiences that have happened throughout their life, not feeling like they had a voice, as children or all throughout their upbringing, not feeling like they had safe spaces. And so then here they are in this moment of crisis, trying to hold on to themselves while being flooded with so much energy and emotion that's needing tending to. And they're again being traumatized because people don't know how to handle it. So, okay, I know I just said a lot, but so I'm feeling really curious about this, just this thing, like this kind of this idea or phenomenon that women in particular have this capacity and or we've been trained to hide our trauma, to hold it in, to suppress it, endure, don't talk about it. And then somewhere along our journey, and what I'm wondering about is somewhere in the motherhood journey, which, as we know, involves the womb, um, which, and you can speak more to this because you're the womb expert, in my opinion. But the womb as a place of holding so much trauma, and then having birth as this portal, and motherhood maybe activating the womb and activating the trauma that has been stored there. And then the other piece is kind of the masculine and the feminine because what I'm seeing is I guess it's not just the masculine or the masculine partner, but what I guess I'll kind of focus on that because I'm noticing it and I'm really curious about it. It feels like the masculine in particular doesn't know how to respond or hold a woman or the feminine energy when she's in this dysregulated state. Yeah, I think. And so a thought I had is that there's something about, okay, let me back up. So I'm talking about the woman or the feminine in a dysregulated state, but at the same time, there's also wisdom there. It's like something gets unlocked, and yes, there's, tons of trauma that's coming forward, but the mind is also making tons of connections. Like there's a lot of wisdom there too, where it's not like I'm just remembering that I experienced some form of sexual abuse as a child. It's that in a in an instant, my mind is connecting that trauma to this trauma and that trauma and this experience and why I have felt unsafe around men my whole life and how my partner reinforces this narrative that I'm unsafe, right? It's like this flood of connections that are being made. And the woman in that space is trying to express it, trying to get it out, trying to tell her partner, right? Oh my gosh, I remember I was abused as a child. Oh my gosh, I remember this. And I remember that. And what you're doing is really activating for me. And here's what I need. And in that sharing and expressing and asking for support, the man or the masculine is intimidated, afraid, doesn't have the skills, doesn't know how to trust that. There's something that the masculine can't trust about the feminine wisdom. And almost like the masculine in our society has been trained, or I'm saying masculine, but like men in our society have been trained over decades to discredit feminine wisdom, to be the authority and the dominator, and yeah, someone who needs to a presence who needs to manage the feminine and can't trust the feminine wisdom. It feels threatening in some way. Okay, I have said so much, so I'll just pause there.
Whoa.
What's
Well,
coming up?
so many golden nuggets and just truths that I heard you share. And I'm in this curiosity with you. And one of the things that you just said was like this masculine perhaps need to manage the female experience. And throughout your sharing, I was thinking about hysteria, female hysteria. It has been this phenomenon that is just been like, oh, we gotta like, these women are going crazy. We gotta like cut them off from whatever they're going through. We need to like make them normal again. Like, what is this insanity? And I think this expression of what you're speaking to, this really untamed, unfiltered expression of truth and trauma, has been alive for so long. And for so long, society as a whole has not known how to be with it and to manage it, right? And is looking for ways to control it or label it, to deny it. And I know that it's a running theme for women to be called crazy when anything out of the normal comes up, or when her behavior is expressing something that doesn't fit in with something manicured and tailored to something digestible for society.
Mm.
And it's no wonder that so many women are diagnosed and medicated, because our full expression of truth is not welcome.
Mhm.
And when you were sharing about how these women in your work and in your personal life have been kind of affected, and then sharing their real experience, I think of like them tapping into this primal instinct like birth will activate that primal instinct. You know, if a child is threatened, that will activate that primal instinct of the woman, of the mother. And from that primal instinct, that was also what was injured. And when you tap into that primal instinct, like you release all the other layers of the mask, of the persona, of the personality, to really be with the needs of that place. And the other kind of holding together pieces of the mind and the body are shattered. And I'm there with you in that question, like, how are we with women when these places become unlocked, when they are hysterical? Because that hysteria doesn't come from nowhere. And so we can label and judge and medicate and, oh, that's mania. Oh, there's that stigma. And sure, maybe it is mania. But what is mania?
Mm-hmm.
What is hysteria? What is happening? What happened? And how can we hold it? Versus just simply putting a label and saying, shut up now.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
Primal. That makes so much sense to hear it that way, that right, our primal instinct gets unlocked and it unleashes so many other experiences that were very primal in life and death. And I'm so curious, and I meant to look this up because you and I had talked about, you shared some kind of high statistic of women. Do you want to share that being medicated or with diagnoses?
Yeah. I'm not sure the exact statistic of women who are medicated, but I believe it's half of all women will be diagnosed with a mental health disorder in their lifetime. And 1/4 of women are currently diagnosed with a mental health disorder. And I think that really speaks to a need that's not being met and really speaks to an expression of trauma that's not understood.
Right.
And I think women are the backbone of society as mothers and as aunties and caretakers and just in their feminine knowing and wisdom, and something's something's got to give. There's more. We need to listen to women.
We need to listen. Yes. Right. Why are all these women getting diagnosed? There's my dog barking. Why are all these women being diagnosed with depression or borderline personality disorder? Why are we medicating all these women who are having a really natural, wise response to injuries? Like you said, they're hysterical. Okay, yes, and we can label it. We can put a name to it to help us understand to a degree what we're seeing, but why is she hysterical? What happened? What happened to this woman to cause her to be hysterical, to cause hysteria, to cause mania? And we don't need to be afraid of it. Like, oh, yeah, something's going on with this person. She's crazy. Put her on some meds. Let's numb her out. Let's disconnect her from the wisdom and from what's trying to be expressed because it's too much. We don't know what to do with it.
I see that like the medication, of course, in certain circumstances is life-saving, but like in certain cases, it's like the medication is meant to make everybody else comfortable.
Hmm.
And what's coming through is actually meant to make everyone uncomfortable. It's meant to stir up reality. It's meant to shake everything. It's meant to shake the ground and be like, this is not just, something needs to change. And unfortunately, it's bubbling up individually in all these women, and it's pathologized,
Apologized.
yeah, pathologized. And it's almost like there's this collective like resurgence of demanding a shift in how women are held, acknowledged, treated, understood. And imagine if there were a reverence, like, oh, she is speaking to something here. It's like this huge shift in, there's so many different instances throughout history and society where women and men have been turned against one another, or women have been, as you mentioned, distrusted. I mean, this, I can think of even just the witch burnings. That was a huge thing. It was like the feminine wisdom was made to be evil and distrusted. And I can imagine what it would look like and feel like to have this different dance between the masculine and the feminine. But it's important to acknowledge that where we are is in this big distrust of these deeper pieces of expression.
Yeah, right. Something is moving through her. Wow. Like, look, she's hysterical. There's something big happening. Let's listen. What if we could listen and look for the wisdom that is coming through rather than fearing it?
Right, in acknowledging that it's a message for the collective. Like she is expressing something, yes, personal, but also in a collective experience for women. And it's so like minimized how connected we all are as humans, and how connected all women are and all wombs are together. And so to acknowledge that a woman in this state is speaking up for perhaps her experience, but also feeling what women in general are being subjugated to.
And there's this other piece I'm noticing, which is, well, one, sexual abuse
Mm-hmm.
of some kind seems to be involved and resurfacing, and intergenerational sexual trauma. So these women are not only reconnecting with their own sexual trauma, but they're reconnecting to sexual trauma that their mothers experienced and their grandmothers and their aunts and all these women in their lineage. And somebody or somewhere I heard this idea that kind of supports the theory of intergenerational healing, which is that women are born or girls are born with all of their eggs for their lifetime. And so when when the mother is experiences sexual trauma, the daughter, the egg that will later become the daughter, is in her womb at that time, also experiencing the energy of that trauma, and so on and so forth. Mother and grandmother's womb. And like that. Do you, what do you think about when it comes to that?
I mean, I think that's absolutely a powerful statement and understanding. I think it's both, the possibility of the son or the daughter that's in her womb too, and perhaps the different effect on each one. But it is this understanding to be aware of that we carry in our bodies the future and the past, and it's all connected, and kind of back to that like very individualistic thinking that we're so a part of versus seeing this collective and this lineage back and forth as represented in the body and in the womb and in the eggs.
And
Yeah.
did you say something about hysteria being connected to sexual trauma?
Yes. So I would need to further confirm this, but from what I understand, that at the point that they were researching hysteria, that all women who were experiencing it had had sexual abuse. That was discovered that all the women who had experienced it
Wow.
or were experiencing it had sexual abuse.
And what I'm seeing is so another thread in just this is just what's happening in my world at the moment, both professionally and personally, not for me, but in connection with other women. Um, there's this piece of being silenced, of there's a piece of sexual trauma majorly and suffering in silence, feeling like they didn't have a voice. They never had a voice. It wasn't safe to ask for help, or they asked for help and it wasn't heard, it wasn't believed, it didn't show up. So this piece about not having a voice. And another thread is the importance of having their male partner be witness and having the male partner be that safe person. That seems so important for them to feel safe in their body and to be able to hold and process all of the trauma that's showing up. And as I said before, what what I'm seeing is that the men initially can't do that. The men do this thing that we do in society and that we have really, I believe, kind of taught men to do, which is not believe, question, use the logical mind to try to make sense of it and kind of say, that doesn't make any sense. What are you talking about? Like, you're scaring me. It's scary. You're crazy. We gotta tone this down. And not listening. So not hearing, not trusting, which is so wounding because they're coming in with a lifetime of not being trusted, not being listened to, not being believed, not being helped and supported. And and there's something without that safe experience in their primary relationship, in this case with a man, without the man being able to show up in that way, they're like stuck in the hysteria. It's like they can't come back to a sense of safety, or it's just really hard because it's like continuous re-traumatization. So there's something about that the importance, like the feminine needs the masculine
Yeah, the
to
sacred
be able
role.
to hold and hear and protect. And without that, there's fragmentation. It's like it's unbearable.
Wow. Yeah, the sacred role of the masculine. of their partner to really be there. But being there could perhaps require them to touch into something so deep that may be shattering for them and therefore scary.
Yeah, the man.
Yes, for the man, right? And so that it's almost there's a bigger piece there, but I feel the power of that role and the purpose of that role of that partner, that masculine counterpart to hold and listen and be moved and to be anchored and to allow this witnessing to unfold in the necessary way for healing. And it's big.
Yeah, they're showing up in the way they know how. They're like, I'm doing the man thing. I'm doing what I have been taught to do, which is to take charge and like be logical and be realistic and
Fix it.
fix it. Right, right. I'm doing the thing that I'm supposed to do. I don't know how to do what you actually need me to do because that hasn't been taught, that hasn't been nurtured, that doesn't feel safe or known.
How do we teach our men? How do men learn how to show up?
So I feel like that will be part two. Let's have a follow-up
Yeah.
conversation where we actually
Yeah,
try
yeah.
to solve this problem. But
Right.
I want you to share what you shared with me
Mm,
the other day about how it used to be, how the role of the masculine and the feminine, and how the masculine in its wholeness innately is the shepherd, the guardian, like the protector of the feminine wisdom.
in more ancient times, when women were bleeding on their menstrual cycle, they would come together on the new moon and they would be in little villages together or in what we would call red tents together. And during this time, they would, as they were bleeding, it was known as a time for psychic messages to come through, or intuitions or revelations to come through dreams or prophecies. And the women would collectively experience this bleeding time and these visions individually, but then share them collectively and bring them back to the others in the village. And those messages and prophecies and visions were revered and respected. And the men and other people in the village would then listen and take in these dreams and understandings and would hold them in such high regard that they would be used as information for how to move forward in their day-to-day living or their future planning.
So beautiful. So somewhere along the way, over many, many years, we've conditioned men out of that role. We've done the opposite. We've taught them, as you were speaking to distrust the feminine, to question the feminine wisdom, to challenge, to be the dominator or the wise one. I think that's so beautiful to tie in the history. And I put down, I was, taking notes and I was thinking about this, what is the divine masculine and what is the dance between the masculine and the feminine? Because both are so important and work together. And I put what came to me was that he elevates the feminine. He gives her the microphone and carries her message, carries her wisdom, and her wisdom guides his action.
Yeah, it is a sacred dance. And then she therefore deeply trusts his action, in his leadership through the action, because she knows that it is held within reverence of wisdom.
Right. Right. She then trusts him to hear, to hold, to protect, to take aligned action. There's this trust between both,
Mm-hmm.
and both are so needed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'll be so curious to dive into that element of trust in rebuilding that sacred relationship.
Yeah, me too. That'll be a good one. So, just like in if we could sum it all up, what I'm really sitting with is we need to listen. We need to listen to women and really hear and trust the wisdom that comes through in these really big, sometimes scary, chaotic, messy ways. But listen for the wisdom and trust that there is wisdom there, that something is moving through her
Mm-hmm.
that needs to be heard and tended to and trusted.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to do better as
And
therapists,
even,
as
yeah.
professionals, as partners. We have to do better in the holding and the hearing
Mm-hmm.
and not let our own fear get activated and guide us to try to suppress.
Mm-hmm. Be open to being moved and to learn something versus oppressing our own ideas of what should be.
Mhm. Beautiful. Okay. I know this was kind of a quicker one. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And we would love to hear your thoughts. For anyone listening, you have questions about this, your own thoughts and opinions, your own wisdom to share, please write us. Let us know, and we'll definitely have a follow-up conversation. And if this resonates or you know someone it'll resonate with, please share this with someone you care about, someone who needs to hear this message. Like and subscribe. It just helps us reach more people.
Yeah. Let this be a dialogue.
Hmm. Thanks so much, everyone.
Great. Thank you.